Hello everybody, welcome to the video where I'm going to give some tips of sorts, a bit of advice on how to do a notes sheet, or as some students call it, cheat sheets. Now maybe in primary school you didn't really have much access to these things, so come high school it might be a little bit of a shock and maybe you haven't really been taught that much about what to do with them, so I guess this might just be my impression of what to do with them. Admittedly, I haven't had that much exposure to them. I think I had them briefly during university, but in high school I don't remember ever really using them. But either way, onwards we go. So, the first thing I would say is consider all the content for your assessment. Okay? So think about all the things that you're going to be covering. Think about all the things that you're going to be looking at. That is the main thing that you've got to think of when you start. When you're going to have a notes sheet, you need to make sure that you know actually what's going to be in it. You really have to consider, if it's for a test, what was covered in the last test. Is any of that going to overlap into this test? Do I know exactly what's going to be in this test? Is it going to be a couple of chapters from my textbook? Things like that. Clarify that with your teacher. That way you know exactly what's going to be in. Next, look through the textbook, exercise book, recent assignments. The reason I say that is because that is where you're going to find the information about what you've been covering. Sometimes it will be literally in the textbook. Sometimes recent assessments that you might have done might paint a picture as to what's going to be in there. It all revolves back to that first point about knowing what is going to be in your assessment. Next, write down every type of question you see. This is if you want to excel. If you really want to excel, if you want to have an excellent note sheet, everybody that's trying to excel is doing this. Write down every type of question you see, because any type of question that you've been exposed to can be in your upcoming assessment. They're not going to grab something out that you've seen nothing like it before. Even the trickiest questions, they're going to have some relation to what you've seen before. Otherwise, it's definitely unfair. You could definitely complain about it, but it's very unlikely to happen. Educators are grabbing assessment questions based on what you have been exposed to, what you have been taught. Okay? So, write down what every question is asking of you and make it into this own little section. Have it in a Word document or something. Write it on your page, on like a random page in your book, about what sort of questions are there. And then this next step is very important, that it relates to it. Once you have all the different types of questions that could be in your upcoming assessment, put them in order of hardest to easiest. The ones that you find hardest, okay? And then start putting in worked examples of those questions on your notes page. Now, the reason I say put it in difficulty from hardest to easiest is if you're finding things really easy, they're not at the highest priority to take up space on your notes sheet. If something is quite difficult and you really struggle to understand it, then that's one of those things that you really want to be putting on your notes sheet first. Okay? And worked examples are super important. Generally speaking, for STEM subjects, so your science and technology and math subjects, you're going to have worked examples in your textbook. So have worked examples down, copy them down from your textbook, put them on your notes page. And if it's a particularly difficult question, there's nothing wrong with having multiple examples, which is exactly what I've said next. Use multiple examples if the content's especially difficult, or if there's subtle differences between the examples. Sometimes there's only very small differences between questions, and it can be difficult to understand why they're slightly different. And if you find that difficult, then put those different sorts of examples down. And that way, come assessment time, you're hopefully able to see the link between the question that you've been asked of in your assessment and what you have on your notes page. Hopefully you'll be able to pick between the different sorts of questions that there are. Now, I'm going to show my notes sheet at the end of this video, so you will see that there will be small instances where I've doubled up on information. That is fine. Okay, it's better to have multiple examples of something that it may well help you, as opposed to skimping out on something because you think that, oh, I've already sort of covered that before, I don't need it. Normally, if you use your space well, you've got plenty of room for anything that you might want. For content heavy subjects where it's more to do with content based questions, worded questions and answers and terminologies and definitions, as opposed to calculation based questions, then it might be a little bit trickier. I would discourage doubling up then. But for your STEM based subjects, when you've got to do calculation based questions, no worries at all if you have to double up a little bit, okay? As long as you've got your space for what questions you find hardest, that's the most important thing. That's what your note sheet is supposed to help you with. Obviously not with helping you do absolutely everything, just being a bit of a safety net when you get to those questions where you're unsure. Critically, like I was just saying, be familiar with your notes page, know where everything is. It is your safety net. It is not the thing you should be looking at for every single question. Ideally, those people that prepare really well might be compiling a page of notes as they're going through the semester, be it at high school or university. If you are not like this and you are doing this at the 11th hour, the night before an assessment, then that makes it a bit harder. But you've got to really know what you have on your notes page and where it is. You want to be using it efficiently, effectively, quickly, smoothly. You don't want to be burning time during your assessment trying to find out where something is. Okay? You need to be comfortable where things are, and it's your notes sheet. You get to design it how you want. You get to categorize it and set it out how you like. It's individual. Nobody's making you do it in a certain way. You make things as big, as colorful as you want. Okay? Practice doing questions or exams whilst using your note sheet. The best way to know that your note sheet is good is if you've been using it. If you use it to for practice questions or practice exams and things like that, you will then become more familiar with the locations of the different questions and worked examples and terminologies and things within your notes sheet. That will help you familiarize yourself where everything is, and it will help things go quicker and smoother. It will also let you know if there's certain things that you're missing. If you are trying to do a question, let's say a question that involved co-interior angles, and you have a co-interior angles example on your page, but you still can't figure out the question despite you having that example, then you need to A, upgrade your knowledge, and B, very importantly, upgrade your notes sheet, because that example that is supposed to be assisting you is not helping you yet. You either need a better example, up your knowledge, or a bit of both. Okay? Next, and this is something that not everybody does, but I definitely think it's a great idea. Write more than what you need somewhere on a blank paper or in your book, and then simplify that to your notes. It's better to have too much than not enough. But this goes without saying. The more effort you put into a note sheet, the better you will do. If you just put the bare minimum amount of things on there, it's really important to have more and then simplify it down, because again, it's just helping your knowledge. It's helping you focus on what is the most important bits of information that you really need on your cheat sheet. Perhaps as you're writing everything down, you realize some things are just so easy that they'd be a waste of your time to put on the cheat sheet. Generally speaking though, put everything you can that may be of some assistance. Unless you feel like you can get 100 questions right correctly out of 100 attempts, then unless you're absolute 100% on them, just put it in your notes sheet. You'll have enough room. It should be okay. One of the last ones now. Obviously, make sure you can read/use what you have written down. I've had students that could write in a super, super small text and they could read it and they were just fine. That's perfectly fine. We are not all like that. Make sure it's understandable. If you squish everything in, but then you can't really make out what your worked examples are saying, it is not worth anything. So make sure what you have put down is readable and usable. And I think the last bit of advice, whilst getting things off the internet can be useful, you do need to verify that the information is accurate. It will stay in your head better if you write it down yourself. So maybe the best information I can give once you have followed those other tips is to make sure you write your cheat sheet. If you just copy pictures, then it can be done a lot quicker, but the information is not going in your head as well as what it is when you're writing it down. Studies have proven that there's a greater connection between what you're writing down and what is staying in your head, what is going to become easier to become long-term knowledge. So that's all my tips. Here's an example of a little cheat sheet of sorts that I made in relation to doing something like Year 8 mathematics to do with angles and shapes and things like that and transformations. So I look at the different things that could be featured in an assessment. So corresponding angles, vertically opposite angles, angles around a point, etc. And I'm setting it out so it's in a fairly clear way. I've got all my angles things at the top and over here as well with that big picture. I've got some pictures here that are mentioning some aspects of the shapes. I've got a little bit to do with transformations here, where I've got translations, reflections, rotations. I found really clear pictures and decided to use them simply by Googling something like reflection transformation example. Just type that into Google and this was the nicest picture I come up with. All of these are pretty well the nicest pictures that I could come up with. And then I've put this in a PDF editor, which I like, called Drawboard PDF. You do something similar in a Word document. Place the pictures wherever you want. You can label things as you want, enter text as you want, have arrows towards things. I definitely recommend that you put it in a way that is best for you. If you like it colorful and bouncy and visual, have it like that. If you want everything to just be all words, have it like that. If you want everything in alphabetical order, have it like that. You set it out how you want. If you want more worked examples with actual numbers, instead of like mine where some of them just have letters, then do it like that. For me, I can see that if the angles are here compared to parallel lines, I know that they're going to be corresponding. If I was unsure about that at all, I could write some text down, or I could say, replace the W with 25, like do my own drawing. If it's 25 degrees up here, it's 25 there. Okay? Just like I've got with this vertically opposite one. I can see that the two 35s, they're different colors, but they are vertically opposite. They are the same. Okay? Just like the other two are as well. The other thing that I had here as well, and sometimes you'll come across something like this, you'll have to categorize certain things, such as within these congruent triangles. If there's categorization that needs to be done, make sure that you keep the words to a minimum. That way it's as clear as possible. You do not want to be reading extensively during an assessment. You want to know straight away when you see a question, whereabouts on my note sheet do I use and how can it help me as quickly and accurately as possible. And that's pretty much it. That's my overall bit of advice for note sheets in general. I'll probably make another one for another subject at some other point. That way I can give a little bit more examples of what works and what you can do and things like that. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments below. Thank you so much for your time.